We want to talk some Tennessee basketball. As Danny White said two things: that Rick Barnes' best days are ahead of him. Let's get your thoughts on that first, Caleb. What do you think of that notion?
Oh, it's absolutely true. And we're going to talk about this in a second. Rick Barnes at SEC Media Days basically let it be known without letting it be known that his best days are ahead of him. And
Isn't
he
he
is
70?
he is 70 going on 40, guys. Rick Barnes is one, he's always been good at adjusting. That's actually always been one of his things. I'm not saying he's the Nick Saban of basketball because he doesn't have 7 national championships. Heck, he doesn't have any national championships. But he's always been able to adjust and coach with how the game has changed over time. The reason Rick Barnes doesn't have a national championship is because he doesn't he's always focused more on developing and coaching players than scheming. Is that fair to say? And so he's kind of like the David Cutcliffe of basketball in that way.
Okay, Rick Barnes' best days are ahead of him. Yep, no way he's 70. I'm going no way he's 70. If you want to take part in a poll question, you can do that. Adam says he's 70 and Durant isn't coming back to college. Neither is Dalton Connect. So the other thing that Danny White said is this is Tennessee's deepest team. And I'll defer to you, but I'll say this. I would take Dalton Connect over deep in a heartbeat.
I wouldn't. And first of all, Adam, to your point, Durant isn't coming back to college. Rick Barnes got bounced out in the second round of the NCAA tournament without Kevin Durant. He made the Elite Eight last year. He made the Sweet 16 the year before. So he's been better most of his career without Kevin Durant than he has been with Kevin Durant on average. I would take deep. Now, let me get this out of the way. Tennessee is number 12 in the AP poll. That came out on Monday. Kansas, Alabama, UConn, Houston, Iowa State, Gonzaga, Duke, Baylor, UNC, Arizona, and Auburn are all ahead of them. Alabama's number 2, and Auburn is number 11. Those are the two SEC teams ahead of ahead of Tennessee.
Is the SEC down this year?
I actually think it was more down last year, funny enough. I don't think it's down this year because you have Alabama, you have Auburn, you have Texas A&M at number 13, they have Arkansas at number 16, Florida's up at number 21, Kentucky's still there at number 23, and Ole Miss is number 24. So I actually think the SEC is pretty loaded, and I didn't count Texas, who's number 19. I forget that Texas is. I keep forgetting they're in the SEC.
What about I got Jonas Adu making second team All SEC?
Yeah, I mean, until you actually get physical with him and he cowers and runs. But yeah, no, I mean, Jonas Adu did make second team All SEC. I believe Zakai Ziegler. Didn't he make it too?
You tell me. Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and On.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
Somebody asked me recently on our YouTube page, they said, and by the way, click like and subscribe. Make sure you have the notifications on, ring that bell. Somebody asked me, I've always liked you, but I don't understand your dislike of Zakai Ziegler. Well, I'm backtracking on that officially, and I may backtrack on I don't believe Nico can be an elite quarterback because I believe you have to adjust based off what you've seen. I thought Zakai Ziegler had a propensity to play out of control a couple of years ago, and he has been able to harness that and still play with great intensity and not out of control. So, Caleb, I think Zakai Ziegler is a fantastic piece to build around, primarily because of his defense as a point guard, which is a great way to start defensively.
An absolutely great way to start defensively. And for the record, just so you know, Zakai Ziegler is first team All SEC. So put some respect on that man's name. Now, there's a lot that we have to get to with this team, because is it Tennessee's deepest team ever? It's definitely Rick Barnes' deepest team ever. They added Chaz Lanier, a superstar scorer who blew up, 2 post players in Igor Milicic Jr. and Felix Opera to give them athleticism under the basket and more of an ability to stretch the floor, which I think together is more valuable than Jonas Adu and Toby Owaka, who they lost. So they're better down low. They have the replacement of Dalton Connect and Darling Stone Dubar, And you can call me crazy on that, but his profile is exactly the same. And as I've told you guys 1,000 times, this is why Rick Barnes' best days are ahead of him, and this is why Dalton Knecht is going to be a dime a dozen for Tennessee. Rick Barnes has always focused on coaching up players. Now, when you do one and dones, that's not a good philosophy. One and dones aren't trying to be coached in. They are looking for a pit stop for the NBA. But in the era of the transfer portal, what can you do? You can go and find a player that has really developed over 4 years at a smaller school and really refined his fundamentals and now all of a sudden looks like a potential NBA player, but just has to fine-tune one part of his game. And they will fully buy into what Rick Barnes is doing. And they're veterans. And that's what Rick Barnes is doing. That's what Dalton Knecht did. That's what I think Darling Stone-Dubar and Chaz Lanier have both done this time around. This is why Rick Barnes' best days were ahead of him. And he was at SEC Media Days, and he pretty much said that exact thing. He was asked about 3 things: Dalton Knecht, Calipari, and the changing of the game. And he was asked about his colleagues leaving the game because of all the changes happening. And his exact quote was, he basically said, we coach and teach players to adjust. We should be able to adjust too, as coaches. And
yeah, I don't think his best days are ahead of him. He made the Elite Eight last year. Are you telling me he's going to make the Final Four before he's done?
He just had his second best season of his career last year. You just made my point.
But he just had the second best player during his career on his team.
No, he didn't. He did not have the second best player during his career on his team. If you go look at the NBA and players he has coached in the NBA, Dalton Knecht's not going to be the second best player to ever play for Rick Barnes on his team.
Who is going to be second to Durant?
Who's going to be
Barnes is coached?
Okay, well, second to Durant, I'll just go down the list and name a few people because there's quite a few actually.
Okay, do that as I remind people. Asia Cafe, treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine handcrafted from Guarded Family recipes. 5 locations to choose from, and they also have the Energy Booster Premix instant white coffee that you can order at asiacafe.org. So you can come up with a list if you would like, but there's not one player that's going to prove, other than Kevin Durant, under Rick Barnes' watch to be better than Dalton Knecht, who also has fallen into a great situation with the LA Lakers.
There is Dalton Knecht would have to fight to surpass TJ Ford with what he did in the NBA. More importantly than that, though, LaMarcus Aldridge has been a career starter in the All-Star game in the NBA. LaMarcus Aldridge is a career 20-10 guy. I don't think Dalton Knecht's going to be better than LaMarcus Aldridge. And I don't think you think he's going to be better than LaMarcus Aldridge. Dalton Knecht has work to do to be better than Grant Williams in the NBA. Now, I think he could be on Grant Williams' level, but Dave, I'm seeing a starter in the NBA. I'm not seeing a perennial all-star in the NBA in Dalton Knecht.
CIM. Maybe that's where we differ.
That may be where we differ. If we do, then you got me. But I don't see a perennial all-star. And look, Barnes said you have to be able to adjust. He's absolutely right. And I think part of this is he knows that this new style is a better fit for him. I mean, and he was asked about, all-season changes and things like this, and he said, each team is my own individual team. He doesn't look at who they lost and who they got. He did say he's looking for the next Dalton Knecht. I mean, he did basically say that. But he touted Jemai Meshack. Look, this Tennessee team, guys, has a lot of talent that I think people are sleeping on because they lost Dalton Knecht to the NBA. I mean, they still have, we can just go down the list, but they still do have Zakai Ziegler. They still do have Jordan Gainey. They still do have Jemai Meshack. They still do have Cameron Carr, who came on late. Cameron Carr's emergence, his wife, Freddie DeLeon, and DJ Jefferson hit the transfer portal, by the way. On the inside, JP Estrella was developing down the stretch of last year, and they added Igor Milicic and Felix Opara. And basketball is not like football where you need to play together for like 5 years. Dave, you know this. With veterans in basketball, you're a Celtics fan. You know this with Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce. If they're veterans, you can plug them together for a year, and they'll play like they played together for 20 years.
Yep, there's a lot of truth to that. And the Celtics were really the first team that did the super team thing. Miami gets most of the credit for that because of LeBron. But the Celtics were kind of the first ones that put together an all-star team to win a championship.
And you notice the difference between the two? And this is a big difference. Miami those players at that moment, 2011, were better than those 3 Celtics players were at that moment. Fair to say, because of their ages.
Yes. No, they were better.
No question. They were. Miami failed to win the title their first year. The Celtics won it their first year. Why? Their youth. They had to actually learn to play together. Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce didn't have to learn to play together. They immediately clicked because they were so experienced. And
I'm still mad at Ray Allen for leaving the Celtics. Just give him one more year, and there's one more championship. And He Got Game is one of my favorite movies, but it's one of those that I rewatch because it's so good, and I can't watch it now.